On today's show, we are going to look at, or I am going to look at, what would success mean for Nikola Jokic this season? What would that look like? Statistical markers, as well as for Michael Porter Jr. and the rest of the top 7 players on the Nuggets roster. We'll do all of that today on Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Nuggets. We appreciate you making this your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Right now, I am streaming live on YouTube, where you can join me and Matt Moore most days. Today, Matt's off. I'm going to be off later in the week as we share most of the week, and then we split off duties one day a week. Today will be my solo day, and I want to go through, I actually outlined some statistical markers for each player. Or actually, I should say the top 7 players. I didn't do Jeff Green, Zeke Naji, Davon Reed, those guys, and then obviously the third stringers. Just the top 7 guys who, to me, are by far the most interesting. And in a 30-minute show, I think we'll get to all of those guys. But I want to talk about statistical markers, but also overarching themes for them that would mark success. And we'll start at the very top with Nikola Jokic. 2-time MVP. Where do you go from here? The things for him, I actually think, surprisingly, are a little bit more concrete than usual. Some years you ask, like, I don't know, we'll see what the team needs, this or that. There's some things that I'm most kind of keyed in on. Number one, improved defense from Jokic. This is a no-brainer. For the last 2 years, people like me have said Jokic can be a very good defender when needed, but carrying offensive load and having the defensive burdens as well is too challenging. This year, there should be pockets for him to not have to work so hard on offense. The game, even when he is the fulcrum and running everything, should be easier just by virtue of having more talents. So for me, the improved defense is going to be a big thing. And then also, giving him better perimeter containment, should also lead to better defense. Just Jokic has always been good positionally. When you get downhill at him, blown assignment or whatever, he's not going to save you. Well, this year there should be fewer moments of that. So I look at Jokic and say, this is the year that I think he should be, better defensively, noticeably and meaningfully better defensively. The number 2 marker I have here is an improved leadership. I know this is Michael Malone's big talking point this year. Does he get everybody to buy in? To me, that is a Jokic question. It's a Michael Porter question as well. It's a KCP question. It's a Bones Highland, Jamal Murray, everybody. But to me, it comes down to Jokic. And I always hear this. I've been thinking about this a lot. I always hear, Jokic is a lead by example type of leader. And I like that, but I think it's a little bit of a cop-out answer in some ways. I don't know that there is a great leader that is not a lead by example leader. Meaning, I don't think there's vocal leaders and there's lead by example guys. And vocal leaders have to also lead by example. If you're a vocal leader, you're always giving, rallying the troops, but you're not like setting the example yourself. You're not a good leader. That just means nobody's listening to you when things go bad. If things are always going well, sure, you could be the vocal leader. Nobody sees behind the scenes. If you're not, so lead by example to me is sort of a default setting and almost a cop-out for the other part of this. Now, closed doors, and by all accounts, teammates, coaches have all talked about Jokic being better and better and better at this. But again, the final step for any championship team and any truly great player, Jokic already great, but that next level that can lead a team to a championship, to me, is finding that out. So this year, we've already seen, in my opinion, Jokic having more deliberate responses, Porter, trying to get him involved, and really just almost an extended patience from Nikola Jokic. When Michael Malone was asked the other day about Jokic being grumpy, he said something like grumpy, and he has been. Like, Jokic has not been the most bubbly personality over the last, couple of weeks, starting, I would say, day 3, I think, of training camp. And Michael Malone had a very interesting answer hidden in there. One of them was something like, I think he's just sick of, guys not knowing this or that or what have you. And it stands out to me for a couple of reasons when he was talking about maybe frustrations, like he's just waiting for the team. When are they going to grow up or what have you? One of the things is, it's funny because day 1 and 2 of training camp, I thought he was fine. Day 3 of training camp starts to get grumpy. So it almost makes me think, like, Is he there just like realizing the patience that's going to be required of him this year? Of like, these guys have to, not just patience, but also like you have to both push the team and be patient to understand that it's going to be a long process. To me, I'm guessing that's a large part of Jokic's challenge right now that he's very conscious of I wish these guys were where I'm at right now. I wish I didn't have to deal with this, but I have to. It's a long mountain, and I'm like on mile marker 1 of a 25-mile hike here. So I think that might be, I mean, Michael Malone is basically sharing this insight. Maybe that is part of it, but guess what? That's the challenge. In life, when you climb the ladder of success, it doesn't get easier with each step. It's not like, oh, I got over the hard parts and now it's just a race to the top. The more you go in, the more things are required of you that you least want to be able to give. And for me, this is the Jokic challenge, is he probably least wants to give the patience and the discomfort of having to be on a Jamal Murray, a Michael Porter, a Bones Highland, even a KCP, and saying, that's not how we play here. Here's how we play. And then also molding to say, what is it you need? And how do I find ways to give that to you in a way that's not letting you off the hook for the parts of the responsibility that are yours? So that's Jokic's challenge this year. So this idea of, oh, well, he leads by example, to me, there's a cap to that and there's another level. And I think he's going there. So I say all that is that's his challenge. I think he's doing a very good job of that challenge so far, but I think it's going to be a continued one for him. We get into some statistics here. I think he needs to play 70 plus games this year. If he played south of that, we already anticipate, lower total minute totals from Murray and Porter to be able to be a team like Denver. I think has an opportunity with the depth of talent, the ease of which they score. I think in the regular season, they should be a team that gets wins easier than most, even most good teams. There are going to be good teams out there that have to work harder to get those wins. Like, you think Dallas is a good team, but it's going to take superhuman efforts from Luka over and over and over again. I think Denver has your path to getting 50 plus wins than most teams. But you need Jokic out there. If he misses 20 games, obviously the numbers all change. So 70 plus games and 33 minutes per game. He's played more than that in the past. I think 33 is the right number. You don't want to overextend him because he's had such a big, long run over the last several seasons, because you do anticipate that he's going to play 70 plus games. That's just been his MO throughout his career. 33 minutes sounds right to me. And then I put this stat line out of what I think sounds like a good season for Nikola Jokic. 25 points per game. So that's a little bit down. He had 27 last year, 26 the year before. With all the firepower back, I do expect Jokic's numbers to drop a little bit, but I don't think they drop that much. I think 25 points per game is still a realistic number for, okay, he had a good season. They need him to score. I know he didn't do it in the preseason. I expect him to turn that on in as we get into the season. Some really big nights, 35, 40-point nights, and probably more than last 2 years, lower nights, 14-point games where it just wasn't needed and he was playing the facilitator role. I don't think he can get stuck into that mode, but I do think that he's going to have the opportunity to pick games where he is in that mode because the team is doing so well. So 25 points, 12 rebounds. That would be his second highest ever. He was at 11.5 2 years ago, which is really high. He went up to right around 14 last year. I don't expect it to be at 14. I think he could probably get away with 12 this year and still be extremely impactful on the boards. And there might even be more rebounds available with that perimeter containment, more opportunity basically for him to grab easy boards this year. We'll see. And then 8.5 assists, which is a career high. I think his career high to date is 8.3. I don't expect it to go up like some people do, 10 assists a game, this or that. It's possible. I would love to see it. But when I say the mark for success, Denver marks for success is going to be scoring outside of Jokic more this year. So I don't know that necessarily means everything has to go through Jokic. There's going to be a healthy balance this year of, yes, you probably could maximize your regular season window by just playing through Jokic for all 33 minutes he's on the court. But I do think there's going to be something to giving him off 5 more possessions a game where he doesn't have to be the fulcrum. Maybe he doesn't even touch the ball, but you still get a healthy offense. Not he doesn't touch it because someone else came and jacked up a shot, but just because somebody else ran an action where he got to be a floor spacer and kind of catch a breather. So still 8.5 assists, a career high, but only by 0.2 assists per game, not by like the 2 or 3 assists per game that some people predict. And then defensively, the numbers, 1.7 steals per game would be a career high, and 1 block per game. I think last year he was at 0.9. Let's just get that up to a rounded 1. Steals, he was at 1.5. I'm really curious to see with this extra pressure, if teams are trying more stuff and Jokic is able just to play that position game a little bit more and grab a few more steals. I think it's very possible, and I predict it'll happen this year. And then I put 3 turnovers a game. I think last year he was at 3.8. when I talk about Jokic's assists not necessarily going up 2 or 3 points, I think part of this is doesn't have to try quite the same stuff that he did last year. Like, there's less pressure, so his assists almost come easier because they're more open shots. Maybe Jokic has fewer spectacular assists this year, but more assists, fewer turnovers. And then I put field goal percentage. It's hard because Jokic's numbers are so astronomical. I put 58% from the field, 36% from three. This was a big one on 3.3 attempts per game. So fewer attempts per game than last year from three. I think Jokic's mentality is not to increase his three-point output. And I don't even think like some people, if he can get to 40, whatever, he was at 33. For most of his career, he's around 33. If he could be 36%, they're a little bit more open this year. He's a willing shooter because he's so open. The shots are more obvious when he needs to take them and when he doesn't. Get to 36%, and I think you're keeping defenses honest. And then 6.3 free throws a game, which is the same as last year. The one part of this that I think needs to continue to increase is his ability to draw fouls, even if he's not pressing as much as last year. So he can improves at drawing free throw attempts, even though his like usage is kind of going down a little bit. That to me would be successful numbers for Jokic. We go to Jamal Murray. The number one thing, again, I'm making these. Actually, I got to hit a break. I'm already at 12 minutes. I'll get yelled at if I don't hit this. So let me first tell you guys about LinkedIn Talent Solutions. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager business. If you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available, that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and, best of all, for free. All you do is you go on and you make a job post. Super simple to do. Forming and everything is right there for you. Then you add your job title and a purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. It's simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires and leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the quality candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. It's where you go to post it for, your job posting for free. Terms and conditions apply. Check them out. I'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. All right, back here on the Locked On Nuggets podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Nuggets your first listen today. Now make your second listen game-to-game NBA Western Conference. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game Today, game-to-game covers every game from across the NBA's Western Conference with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On, NBA Western Conference. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Let's get into Jamal Murray here. He needs to bring a toughness and will to win. Denver, I think, has talent when we talk about basketball talents to cover for whatever Jamal needs to ramp up towards. I think that they need his toughness, mental toughness, and his like just competitiveness. I talk a lot about last year, the Phoenix Suns to me, and I know they're a weird example because they got blown out in Game 7 of the semifinals. Don't want to copy that aspect of it. But I do think there was something to last year's Suns teams walked into every arena with a sense of purpose. And that purpose was, we're going to kick your butts. We're the best team in the NBA, and we're here to show you. The Nuggets don't always have that. That's why we talk about some nights the Nuggets, they lose to the Thunder, and you're just kind of like, man, they weren't there tonight. Jamal Murray, to me, needs to bring a swagger and a toughness to this team. And there's other guys that can do this. Bones Highland, of course. I think AG has a renewed sense of determination in him this year. There's players that are going to be bringing that. And then there's guys like Michael Porter, who just want to prove, they're here and proving. So I do think Denver's going to be more focused than most. But I think Murray needs to bring that toughness with them that just kind of has the like, we feel like we can beat anybody. We feel like we can come back from any deficit. And I think that when the Nuggets are their best, he has a confidence that he gives to everyone because he is just so supremely confident. I think it's important for him to rediscover that elite two-man game with Jokic. This is the part we kind of all just pencil in, but we might as well say it that it's also a baseline for success for him. If he and Jokic, for whatever reason, don't have an elite two-man game, or if they're not closing games, at an elite level, that would be a failure on the season and will have ripple effects down the line. So he needs to rediscover that elite two-man game right off the bat, and then figure out how to play with every combination of Nuggets. So I want to see, we've talked a lot about Murray, Jokic great, Jokic, Porter great, the three of them. It's great. The numbers are great, but it hasn't always looked like perfectly in sync. This is a season where Murray has to figure that out, just like Porter has to figure it out, just like Jokic has to figure out. I think with Murray, there's more on his shoulders than maybe is given credit for when we discuss this. A lot of this is Porter has to figure out how to fit in. Jokic has to figure out how to find Porter. I think a lot of this has to do with Murray has to figure out how to pick his spots well. Read like a true point guard does. Porter hasn't really shot the ball for a little bit, or Porter hasn't gotten the ball, it hasn't found him in the flow. How do I, as the point guard and as one of the most important players, how do I sense that and have a good sense for that, good instinct for that, and make sure that we don't go more than 2 or 3 possessions without him feeling involved because he's so important to what we're doing. So I think that falls on Murray's shoulders more than most. And then I think he actually also has to improve as a player without Jokic. I have a feeling, Michael Malone's hinted at it many times, that Murray will be the one to stagger more than Porter with that second unit. So if that's the case, we talked about we really love the Ish Bones combo. What's the Murray Bones combo look like? Murray's better than Ish in different ways. Can that combo become the second punch that the Nuggets have, a la the way Steph Curry could play with the bench in the playoffs last year, and you were always sweating when our bench was on and Steph Curry was on with the bench guys, you were always sweating. Can Murray kind of create that with Bones Highland? Needs to. And then I think he needs to improve as a passer and as an off-ball player because he has to pick his spots a little bit more. And because I don't think Denver needs his scoring right away, they will need it eventually. I'd love to see him focus on his passing and setup game a little bit more. And I'd love to see him move off ball and just trust that the ball is going to find him. So that means 60 games would be great. This is success for him. Lower than 60 games is not necessarily a failure. Lower than 50 games, I think, would be. 55 to 60 games feels like par. And if you get more than that out of him, it'd be like, wow, that was very successful. Coming back from injury, only missed 22 games or fewer. That would be great. And then I looked, instead of his per game numbers, I looked at his per 36 numbers. 20 points per 36 to me feels right. His high was right around 22, which was his final season before getting injured, or the season he got injured. 20 is average for the last 4 seasons. He's actually, if you look at his per 36 numbers over the last 4 seasons, cut out his rookie season and then all the other 4 he's played, they're actually pretty consistent between 20 and 22. So it hasn't been this super linear like improvement on a per minute basis. He's played more minutes, higher usage, but the numbers of per 36 have been the same. Having him try to get to 20 points per 36 minutes at the end of the year, meaning slightly below in aggregate where he was the season before, seems healthy to me. I think the biggest thing is that you're just going to be reducing the minutes. And maybe early on that number's a little low and maybe later on that number's a little high. But I think in a per 36 minutes, if he's at 20 points per game, this was a success. And then I put 22 points per 36 minutes in March and April. So if he gets back to his peak level by March and April, not surpassing it, just back to it, to me, that would be great. I have 6 assists per 36 minutes, which would be a career high. He's been around 5.5. So again, focusing more on the passing and setup game, 6 assists early. That's the number I feel like he can be higher than before. And then 3+ catch and shoot threes per game. So that was what he shot in 2018, and he shot 42% on them. Every year after that, he shot fewer and fewer catch and shoot threes and scored more and more on ball. To me, this is part of how Murray can really both ease his way back into the rotation, but also I think open up a part of his game that's important, and that is picking your shots. Sometimes less is more. And I think for Murray this season specifically, especially the first half of it, less is going to be more. So more off ball, be a floor spacer. You're going to get wide open shots with the guys that you have on the guys that are on the court, and just a little less worried about creating and putting pressure on the defense at all moments of the game. You got to pick your spots there. There's going to be times when he needs to be supremely aggressive, even early on in the year. But I think there's going to be more times than ever when he doesn't need to be supremely aggressive. And so that's why if he's getting 3+ catch and shoot threes per game, I think it'll be a indicator that he was more willing to get off ball and just let the offense flow. Let's talk about Michael Porter. Michael Porter, to me, a steep learning curve at finding the flow of the offense. So we've already seen this, in my opinion, in the preseason. I think from where you went on game 1, and it was really the only game we had with Jokic out there, to where you were in games 3 and 4, it was just so impressive. I felt like he's committed to this, to learning the flow of the offense, and I still think he has a long, long way to go. But a steep learning curve there. If you get to the point where Christmas, where you're like, man, the team finds Michael Porter in these same spots. We always have plays like the Aaron Gordon pick and roll. There's little plays that you recognize. Jeff Green, the AI ISO plays that always get him. if we're at Christmas and we kind of know the rhythm of, okay, there's 5 or 6 different things Denver does that are like the Michael Porter special, but they happen with the offense. You're just like, they're about to get to that action. This is a guaranteed bucket. If you get there by Christmas, I think that would be a steep learning curve to where now you kind of sense when Bones is about to score. You sense when Murray is about to score. You sense when Jokic, the Nuggets run that wedge action for Jokic. He's getting a post up on the left block, and he's probably going to do something there. If you get that way with Michael Porter, I think it'll be a success. I think he has to be, this is the biggest marker for him. He has to be a reliable defender in the clutch and not a target for opponents. I'm very curious to see when you get to the Golden States, by the way, on Friday, when you get to the Clippers, when you get to the Dallases, are teams in the fourth quarter just hunting Michael Porter Jr.? Are they just like, get screen action? All right, Michael Porter's out on Luka. Let's see what happens. If they're doing that, as I suspect they will, that is a hint of how they view this Denver team. They view there's a crack in the armor. That's where we're going every single time. And then I want to see how he does. Does he recuse himself in those moments? Does he actually get enough stops that over time teams stop doing that? We probably won't fully know the answer to that till the playoffs. Teams, we've seen this before where some teams they go at Denver differently in the playoffs than they go at them in the regular season. So I want to see in clutch time of close games against good teams, and then as the season goes on, are teams continuing to hunt for Michael Porter? If the answer is no, then you know what? You're in great, or if the answer is yes, but it doesn't matter. They keep winning. Teams are sometimes this happens. Teams over attack a defender who they feel is bad. This happened with James Harden, by the way. James Harden, not a great defender, but Daryl Morey and the Houston Rockets created a great switch system where he could ISOing him still scored more than usual, but ISOs are not good shots. And he did a better job than what was worth it. So teams for half a year would keep trying to ISO James Harden, and he would hold them to 1 point per possession, like a 100 offensive rating, which is really bad. And if Michael Porter can just get to that point where it's like teams are doing this, but it's not working the way they think, Denver's going to win a lot of games because that's a bad option. So can he get to that point over the course of the game, and can he get there quickly? And then this is a big one. One of the big talking points for Michael Malone this year has been transition defense and the Hubies, right? Guys, you have to be doing something when a shot goes up. On the offensive end, finding a balance. Michael Porter is so valuable offensively as an offensive rebounder. He has a great nose for the ball. He's so tall, and if he grabs an offensive rebound, he's probably scoring, which means the Nuggets are scoring on that possession. But the balance between going for offensive rebounds and not, giving up transition opportunities, picking his spots well, floor balance versus offensive rebounds, that's going to be a really big challenge for Michael Porter. And I worry that one of the fallouts from Michael Malone's Hubie thing will be, which by the way is a great thing to be focused on, but sometimes you can throw out the baby with the bathwater. Denver last year was not a good offensive rebounding team. In the preseason, they were not a good offensive rebounding team. Are they on something that makes them from great top 5 offense in the NBA to one of the best offenses we've ever seen? In the Jokic era, offensive rebounds have been a huge part of it. You spread teams out. The center is out on the perimeter guarding things, and there's avenues. There's nobody in there to grab the boards, to eat up the boards. So can Michael Porter balance those will be big. And then I have in here expands his game a little bit on offense. Not a lot, but I do want to see if he can be more dynamic on DHOs. There was a great play in this last one where Porter grabbed a DHO from Jokic, stunted, without a dribble, just kind of jab stepped, and his defender jumped hard, and then he hit the rescreen going left off of Jokic and pull up for a jumper. And it was a great setup. In fact, in real time, I was like, oh, what are you doing? Because I thought he had blown up the handoff, but he was actually doing it perfectly. Jab, go to the other side, drain the 15-foot jumper. Is he a little bit better on the one dribble stuff off of Jokic? Is he able to run pick and roll, true pick and roll with Jokic this year, where he can, because he's such a good shooter, you pull that screen so high up that he's coming off of 2-3 dribbles, pulling up from 3, or pulling up, the big jumps out and he drops it off to Jokic. So a little bit more dynamic in dribble handoffs and pick and rolls. And then I'll say just a little bit better of an ISO game. I don't think Denver wants to go to Michael Porter ISOs a whole lot, but I do want there to be comfort that he's not right now. If he gets the ball with 7 seconds left, one-on-one, he's shooting it. I tell you to picture what happens next. He's doing a sidestep or step back or hesitation pull up, right? It's the bag has not been very deep there. I want to see if there's layers to this. And I thought his rookie season, we actually saw more layers of this than anything, where he actually would get to the rim and do some different things. So I don't want this to be overextended, but I do want to see if there's a little bit more ISO to his game, a little bit more other options to his game this year at an efficient level. All right, let's get to the numbers. 60 plus games for Michael Porter, same as Jamal Murray. With him, though, the minute total is a little higher. I put 30 minutes per game. It's funny how Michael Malone even talks about Murray, and this is going to be a ramp up or what have you. Porter looks there. The preseason numbers, better than the last time we saw him. I know it's preseason, so if you actually weigh for preseason, his per 36 numbers have been exactly what they were last time we saw him healthy, with a little bit more points, but same efficiency. So to me, he looks to me healthy and ready to go 30 minutes a night. I think that's what he'll play right out of the package. 20 points per game. I think he's the team's second leading scorer this year, in part because Murray, I think, is going to play fewer minutes and ramp up and this or that. But in part, for being a player that's mostly off ball, I think he's just a better scorer. He's one of the better natural scorers in the NBA, especially given the minute totals. So 20 points per game to me seems very doable. And being the second leading scorer to me, I think that Denver will have less of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it'll be more like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all in a row, like kind of like between 14 and 20 points. There might be 4 players there, and we'll get to all of them. And then I put 60% effective field goal percentage. It's hard to do this for Michael Porter. Like, he did 64% effective field goal percentage last year. Jason Tatum is like around 50%, and we consider him a good, efficient scorer. Michael Porter's just, his effectiveness, his efficiency is ridiculous. I put 42% from 3 on 6+ attempts a game. 42% is really high. Again, it's hard to put numbers on this because he shoots 45% for most of the season, but it's unrealistic to tell a guy you expect 45% from him. I will say, though, 45% on 5 catch and shoot attempts a game. If Michael Porter, LeBron James' most efficient year, 2013, he did not take any threes that weren't catch and shoot. He put it in his brain, I'm not doing this. Michael Porter doesn't need to do that. He's a better shooter than LeBron. But I do think that he needs to be thinking about catch and shoot. Get 5 catch and shoots a game. I think he's averaged around 4 the one season he played a lot of minutes. I think he can get that up even more. Focus on how to get open for those so that you can get 5 attempts a game, even with the defense focused on you, because he's going to shoot 45% on catch and shoot threes. 7 rebounds per game, including 1.5 offensive rebound per game. That's, again, those numbers are a little bit higher than his peak, but I think he can, not by much. They're more getting back to what he was doing his last healthy season. And then I put 1 block per game. His rim protection, I mean, I think he was at like 0.8 or something the last time we saw him. He can get that up even a little bit more and be more comfortable as this shot blocking rim protector. So that's it for Michael Porter. Let's take a quick break. On the other side, we'll wrap up with the other role players that I have here. And I'm going to check the comments out during this break so I see what everybody has to say. Somebody in the comments says Michael Porter Jr. is averaging 25 points per game. I mean, look, you know what's funny? That these are barometers for success. To me, 20 points per game is a barometer for success. If you told me Michael Porter averaged 20% on the efficiency I just mentioned, I'd be like, yeah, that's a great season, man. Great job. Is it possible, though, he gets 25 points per game? Absolutely. That guy, like, we don't know his ceiling. With Jamal Murray, we know his ceiling, and it's really high. We know Jokic's ceiling, and it's really high. With Michael Porter, we're still unsure. Like, we haven't seen enough of him that we don't know. So is this a year that when Jokic went from 22 points per game to 26.5, that was like a pushing the boundary for what I expected. I thought 26.5 might be his absolute apex year. Everything went perfect for him. And then he went to 27 points per game, and it's changed the way we view Jokic. He's a volume scorer and elite facilitator, whereas before we thought he was a very good scorer and an elite facilitator. Nope. One of the best scorers in the NBA, one of the best facilitators in the NBA, probably the best or second best offensive player, depending on how you value Steph Curry. With Michael Porter, we kind of, including myself, could he score 25 points per game? Yes. To me, that's his prime. That's the prime of Michael Porter's career. Can he do that this year? I'm not betting on it, but I would not be surprised if he did it. So I love that you put that out there. Let's get into Aaron Gordon. I have that he becomes an elite help side defender and rim protector. This is easily number 1. I believe his on ball. I think he has to be a great on ball defender against wings, and that's a huge one as well. But I have more confidence in him doing that than I do in him being a help side defender and rim protector. There was a play in the last game where the Nuggets had a great 20-ish seconds. Actually, I guess it was 16 seconds of defense. Great. Bottled up a very good Warriors offense. And the ball swung to the opposite side, and it was Kuminga on the wing with Wiseman, I believe, down low. And you're going from strong side to weak side with two players and 7 seconds on the shot clock. And Aaron Gordon ran out at Kuminga, who's not a great three-point shooter. And he swiped for a steal, horrible footwork, horrible closeout, swipe for a steal. Kuminga drove right by him, throws a lob, slam dunk by Wiseman, or dropped it off, slam dunk from Wiseman. You took 7 seconds on the shot clock, ball swings to a bad shooter and a second-year player, and you end up giving up a dunk off of that because you just weren't contained. For me, this is Aaron Gordon's biggest thing. He has to be a solid defender that understands the moment and then is a great rotational defender. We're down to 7 seconds, ball swinging, contain this, force them into something bad, just read the clock. That was an example of a bad one, but he has lots of examples of good ones as well. I'm just thinking for him, Draymond Green never makes mistakes on defense. I shouldn't say never, almost never makes mistakes on defense. He always knows, he's so locked in there about what's going on and what the team needs of him. Even some of Draymond's best defensive possessions come on plays that nobody notices it was him. It's plays like that where he sensed, 7 seconds, I'm going to force him to the sideline. So he's going to have to shoot a sideline jumper and has fewer options on, if you get to the middle of the court, you can pass left, you can pass right, forward, backward. If you funnel a guy to a corner, the court becomes shrunk. Everybody gets to rotate over in 7 seconds, 5, 4. A shot's probably going up that Denver will rebound. Draymond Green does those things really well. I want to see Aaron Gordon get to that level. And then continues to punish mismatches inside. This is the thing he does in his sleep. It's like saying Michael Porter shoot the ball well. When Aaron Gordon gets a little guy on him, he ducks well, he finishes really strong, or he grabs rebounds. Continue to do that. I have him at 14 points per game as a successful year. He was at 17, I believe, last year. I think that number goes down a little bit by virtue of it's just not needed. He's one of the guys whose points will diminish. When he was with the Nuggets the first year for for 30 games or whatever it was, he averaged 14 points per game. So being back to 14 to me feels healthy. If he scores more than that, great. I just don't know if Denver needs it. I think Denver needs him more on the defensive end and then to be the efficient finisher and mismatch punisher and those types of things, with one caveat I'll get to in a second. 58% effective field goal. That would be a career high. Last year, he was at 57.3, which was a career high. So bumping that up even higher to 58% would be huge. 5.5 rebounds per game, which, is a good number for him. 35% on threes on 2.5 attempts per game. It's much lower than his career average, but it's more in line with what we saw, last year. I just don't think he needs to be a volume 3-point per shooter. In fact, I think most of his 3-point attempts need to come from the corner. I will say in a playoff series, I suspect teams are going to have to pick their poison, and they're going to say, we can't stop Denver playing regular. We can't, we're going to trap the ball. We're going to do this, that. The only thing we can do is give Aaron Gordon corner threes and hope that he goes 0-4 and that the team gets a little bit nervous. He needs to get himself up to a 38%-ish corner 3-point shooter. Pick a spot, those two corners, and be confident from there. Know that when you're in those spots, that's Denver needs you to take and make those. And if he can get to just 38% means, let's see, you're right around 114 offensive rating. If you do that, if you're giving a guy open up, your best bet in a playoff series is to give up a 114 offensive rating, not even factoring in, by the way, the offensive rebounds that will come off of that, which will bump it a little bit higher, or fouls that you draw or whatever else. If you can get to 38%, I don't think that's a viable option in a playoff series to just give a guy a 38% corner 3-point shot. You'll get cooked. Actually, we're at 24. And then also, then we'll get into KCP. So Aaron Gordon, as we get to the role players, there's fewer notes because their roles become a little bit more less dynamic. KCP, number one, elite on-ball defense and perimeter containment. I think perimeter containment is actually his best defensive skill. KCP has some phenomenal closeouts in this preseason where guys have tried to blow by him, but nope, he's right there. He traps them. So perimeter containment to me, if we get to a point where it's like Denver on drives defensively, teams drive against Denver the least, or they're top 5 in the NBA at preventing drives, KCP will be doing his job very, very well, and he'll deserve a lot of recognition for it. Offensively, I have in here just no bad shots or limit the bad shots. I thought of all the role players, KCP might have been the one that took the most, especially over those last 2 games, the most shots that you're kind of like, Now, in the first game, he hit a lot of them, but even some of the shots he took, you were kind of like, man, he's forcing that one, and then he hit him. He didn't shoot the ball particularly well in the preseason overall. But more than anything, I just want him to figure out where his spots are and where the team is not needed. In years past, especially most recently, he has had some field goal attempts that his team, they were there for him because he had terrible teammates or terrible offense. This year, there's not. Like, every bad shot he passes up is going to find a better shot down the road. So just no bad shots from him. Some numbers: 42% on catch and shoot threes. That's more or less in line with last year's number. And then 43% on corner threes. He's done that 3 times in his career. So there's reason to think that in the corners, he can be a 43% three-point shooter. If your corner three-point guys are Michael Porter, who's just like 50% from the corners, and KCP 43%, and Aaron Gordon on occasionally, who I just said needs to be around 38%, your offense is going to be ridiculous. Those 3 guys being in the corner and knocking down their shots, I'm sorry, defenses are going to break. There's nothing you can do about giving up 2 40% three-point shooters in each corner. You're just screwed. 9 points per game. His points per game number is not all that important. I don't think he's going to have to score a ton, but 9 points would be nice. And then I have on here fewer than 20% of his shots coming from 3 to 16 feet. We'll call that floater zone to mid-range. His career average over the last 4 or 5 years is right around 22 to 24% of his shots come from those zones. To me, you have to read the game. Sometimes the mid-range shot's the best one. I'm not trying to say eliminate those, but in aggregate, over the course of a season, you should be getting a lot of 3-pointers. That should be where you're looking most, and you should be finishing at the rim. When he played with LeBron James and Anthony Davis, he actually got to the rim a lot, and he finished at the rim. He was 2-3 years younger. He's a little bit older now, but I still think that he's capable of a guy that can get to the rim because he's reading the court right, turn the corner up, defense spread too thin. You got to be able to finish rim. So for me, less than 80% of his shots should come at the rim or the 3-point line, and that would be successful. Bones Highland. Number 1, second unit has to be a positive. A net positive. I just want to see, is he, and I know that's a lot to put on his shoulders. Talking to to Bruce Brown and Michael Malone yesterday, they're very confident with that second man unit. They feel like it's very good and it's won a lot in the practice. So can he run that and make that a positive? If the bench this season is a positive, if you just told me they were a +1 net rating, Denver's winning 54 games because their starting unit is going to be very good. So if their bench is just a neutral, slight positive, they're winning so many nights. The starting unit is not going to lose very often. That if your second unit is a reliable second unit that wins you a few games here and there, but mostly just doesn't blow games, you're winning a lot. He needs to become a reliable Jamal replacement when needed. This is one of the things from the regular season we just didn't see a lot of. I'm curious, when Jamal Murray is not playing well or when he is not playing at all, do they close with Bones Highland there or do they close with Bruce Brown? Because we saw so many games with Bruce Brown there, I kind of think that might be it. But I do want to see if Bones Highland gets a run at the Jamal role, like close the game. I suspect on games when you're down, when you're losing by like 7 points, heading into that final stint, they might throw Bones out there saying, we just need more shooting. We need more offense. Can he get a 2-man game going with Jokic that resembles what we've seen from Jamal in the past, where it's such a pick your poison? I think there is a chance that Bones Highland has such a season this year whereby we're asking, is he as good as Jamal in some ways? Like, is he on pace, I should say, to become as good as Jamal? Different, and he gives up some physical advantages. He has some physical advantages, but I wonder if we're looking at it and going, man, that's just as effective. Outside of, what Murray has done in the playoffs, which is hard to imagine anybody doing again. But there's a chance that happens. That's not par for me. That's not like a mark of success, but that would be a mark of hyper success. He needs improved defense. I just don't, he can't be a guy that we look at and say, okay, he's a huge liability on defense, especially if he wants to play in the playoffs, high minute totals and this or that. You probably want to see him be a guy that, like Michael Porter, teams stop attacking because they're like, well, even though he's a below average defender, it doesn't make sense for us to keep ISOing him. He gets enough stops that this is a bad option for us. Play 70 games. He played 70 games last year. If he has 2 seasons in a row to start his career at 70 games, the durability questions, I think, go out the window. Like, don't worry about his small frame. He rolls an ankle here or there, whatever, but he can play 70 games. 24 minutes per game is an increase of 4 minutes for him, which I think he's in line for, especially with Murray being reduced. He probably will play more than that early on. And then I have 37.5% on threes on 6 attempts per game. 37.5, some people will say, well, that's not that high for as good of a shooter he is. Volume shooters often are not at the 40 or higher mark. If he gets there, okay, he's on pace to be Steph Curry. But if he's at 37.5%, given the difficulty of his shots, how deep of a shots he takes, and the volume, 6 in 24 minutes is a lot. That's close to like Steph Curry numbers, Klay Thompson numbers. So if he's taking volume like that and hitting 37.5%, I think he had a very good year. And then I put 14 points per game. Him, Aaron Gordon, Jamal Murray, Michael Porter, Nikola Jokic, 5 players that can average 14 or more a game. That's very rare. That's a lot of scoring and a lot of distribution, but I think it's possible. And then 4 assists per game. Again, just being that great playmaker. Lastly, we have Bruce Brown. His is very easy to me because his role on this team is almost more obvious. Elite on-ball and pick-and-roll defender. For KCP needs to be a good pick-and-roll defender too, and he navigates screens. Bruce Brown, man, watching him fight through and recover and anticipate screens is part of what makes him so interesting. And when you get to a playoffs and you talk about, do you have to guard a Steph Curry? Do you have to guard a who are some of the other guys out? Well, Devin Booker and Chris Paul, those guys. A lot of that is asking, can you get through screens quick enough so that their offense isn't starting you off from behind? He represents that to me. So being an elite on-ball and pick-and-roll defender is his number one goal, and being able to do that at a high level against the top guards is a huge, huge part of this. And then fits with multiple lineups. I'm so encouraged by Bruce Brown's Jokic lineups, but I want to see what he looks like when Jokic is not on the court. That to me is going to be a big part of this, because right now I'm supremely confident in his ability to play on Denver's best lineups. But how does he look when there's not a lot of spacing? Does it get a little clunky? Does his skill set not shine because the offense gets so bad? That's one thing I'm looking for him. And success will mean he's not Jokic reliant. Some players are great when Jokic is on the court, terrible when he's not. He needs to be great when Jokic is on the court and good when he's not. He needs to be there. And then 37% from the three-point line on 2 attempts per game. He's never going to be a volume three-point shooter, and I don't think he needs to be a dynamic. Last year, he shot 40% on that volume. I think he just needs 37%. Reliable. His three-point shot's not the most important part of his game, in my opinion. All right, that does it, guys, for today's show. Went a little bit long, but hopefully that gives you some idea of what I'm looking at as I get into the tape. I will tell you on the defensive end, watching that Warriors game, I rewatched it, even cut some clips for it. The way that KCP and Bruce Brown are able to switch off-ball screens was so impressive. Those two guys are so locked in, and all of the defensive footwork. People think a switch is just like communicate it, switch. When you're guarding Steph Curry and Klay Thompson running pin downs for each other, you have to have the right timing, footwork, anticipation, and hustle. It takes an enormous amount of effort to be able to switch those and be in position to not get slipped, not to get shortcut, not to get curled around or what have you. And those two guys were so locked in there that I watched that and I go, man, that's something Denver has not had. They've had Gary Harris. They've had Torrey Craig. They had Dozier. They've had individuals who could do this. Austin Rivers. I don't think they've ever put out 2 guys at the same time who are at least offensive neutrals, but defensively can do that at that elite top tier level side by side. And it changes everything for you. So I'm very encouraged by that. All right, everybody. Thanks so much. Hit the like on the stream on your way out. And me and Matt Moore will be back together tomorrow. We'll see you guys.